that just destroys everyone. Like it's crazy to see how much more a good player can get out of Chronomancer as opposed to a mediocre or bad player. And I like that. Like that's another reason why I feel like Chronomancer feels as good as it does, is because like you get more mileage out of the class or out of the elite spec depending on how well you play it. Like it's
That's how it should be, right?
yeah.
That's exactly how it should be. And it's funny because I was talking to another Mesmer that I know, and I went over again. We discussed earlier when I was talking about Guardians being again still the least passive class or strong passive class in the game. I looked at Mesmers; they don't have many good ones either. Outside of again Time March is on, but that's something a little different.
Yeah.
But a lot of what they do, they have to have appropriate input, which is what you want. You know, you don't want to have just all this passive crap given to you. But so I agree completely. I never considered. I considered them at the second Beta Awaken event to be a little too much, maybe because I didn't have the tools to deal with them, maybe because traps weren't as strong as they are now.
Yeah.
But I don't consider, by any means, I don't consider Chronomancer to be ridiculously over the top, by any means.
Yeah.
They seem very fair. I can agree with you on that.
Yeah, someone like a lot of people have asked me like, oh, what do you think about Chronomancers? What do you think about like, where do you think their balance is? And I've always said that they're strong, but they're not OP because in order to make them strong, you have to know what to do. You have to play them well. You have to time everything properly. And if you don't, you're dead. You're like they're not contributing because they're just gonna die if you don't know how to use your skills and whatnot. Because especially if you're running, say, a Marauder or Shatter build like I like to run, you're squish. Like you will die if you do not maintain your active defenses and your evades and your shatters and everything properly. But if you do all that, you can just absolutely decimate people, and you can blow people up, and you can keep yourself alive at the same time. Like when a lot of people say they feel that Chronomancer is basically just a better Mesmer, I completely agree with that, because it's basically, like, especially in the case of Shatter Mesmer or Lockdown Mesmer and whatnot, it's basically those builds, but with more tools to do what they're built for. Like, you have more...
Yeah, that's what these elite specs are. That's exactly what they feel like in most cases.
Yeah, but that being said, I think in the case of Mesmer and Chronomancer, it works. Like, the way... having those extra tools is a good thing, and... it's more or less an upgrade, but at the same time, it works in a fair manner. It doesn't really cause any balance issues per se. I'd say the main issue that comes about with Chronomancer is, what about all the non-expansion players who want to PvP and play against or play Chronomancer or play those old builds? The thing is, though, I think Mesmer, just baseline Mesmer, is still pretty fine as far as being able to do things. Like right now, it's why would you run base Shatter Mesmer when you can run Shatter Chronomancer? But I think if someone tried running just a core Shatter Mesmer, they could still do fine, because there are a lot of nice tools in other specialization lines that you could take to help shore up that build. Like originally, you had Domination, Dueling, and Illusions, and that was really good for like might stacking and just getting all of this might flying around everywhere and like really blowing people up with stuff. A lot of what I've noticed a lot of people do is they drop illusions for Chronomancy or Chronomancer, and you're gaining all these extra tools, but at the same time you're not gaining that might like you were anymore. You're not gaining some of just the extra functionality on some of your shatters, and I can see cases made to where maybe you don't want to run Chronomancer, even in this current kind of PvP situation. And especially if they go and they tone down some of the other elite specs, you may see some of the base Mesmers come back because maybe for some specific thing they want. I'm trying to think of what... there's a Grandmaster trait in Illusions that adds functionality to all your shatters, and I'm trying to remember what... one of them was, it had something to do with your F4, your distortion shatter. I think it added like stability. No, it didn't add stability. That's bountiful disillusion. Or no, I don't remember.
You're supposed to know this stuff, Mr. Professional Mesmer.
I'm not a professional Mesmer, but anyway, like depending on how things change, I could see normal Mesmers coming back. I could see situations where you don't want to run Chronomancer over, say, Inspiration or Illusions, just because those two specialization lines don't or have tools that you want for a specific build. I remember back during discussions with the original the beta weekend event where these were originally available, that there were people saying this build isn't going to want to take Chronomancer because it wants the tools from this other line. It doesn't want the stuff from Chronomancer because it doesn't benefit it as much as this other specialization. Like, I feel that, yes, right now, the way things are balanced right now, yeah, Chronomancer feels like just a straight upgrade to Mesmer, because more or less it is for the popular builds, for your Shatters, your Condi, you've got access to the support bunkery type stuff. But depending on how balance goes, the way the Mesmer traits are set up, I could definitely see base Mesmer builds come back into the play of PvP, depending on how things change, just because of how things synergize.
Again, I hope you're right. And again, that seems like it's one of the very few instances to where a base class would still do well. But again, I completely agree. I still think that Mesmer to be probably the only instance to where you could still run your base class and still be somewhat of effective. Maybe not as effective as Chrono, because Chrono I still think is an upgrade. But yeah, I would definitely see it still being, again, a lot more effective than, say, a lot of base for a lot of other classes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so did we miss a class? Or
I mean, we talked
Tempest?
about...
We already did Tempest,
We did
yes.
Tempest. We talked about... let's see. I mean, we kind of talked about Revenant. Did we really talk about Revenant, like, in this section? I mean, we talked about him as far as, like, balance goes and roles and whatnot, but I don't think we really talked about...
All right, let's hit it then.
Yeah. Harold, I was going to say, Harold, it feels like I've been noticing this from what a lot of people have said, and I've kind of felt this when I've been trying to unlock the Elite Spec and PvE on my Revenant. Revenant feels kind of janky without Harold. Like, it feels like something's missing, and this was something that I had mentioned when they were originally available in, I think, Beta Weekend 2 or something like that. Yeah, Beta Weekend 2. Is it felt like Harold felt too good, and how could you run Revenant without Harold? Like, it felt like the class was designed, it probably was designed around having Harold, but it just felt odd not having Harold in any build that I would play it on. And I've heard that echoed many times by other people who have been maining Revenant.
Mm-hmm. I think it gives a little too much for, again, the sacrifice of taking that one trait line. But again, remember, Herald is an elite specialization. It definitely falls into that category with the vast majority of elite specializations to be quite literally elite in comparison to their base. So I do agree. I think it's too good personally. I think it's very forgiving. I'm not gonna say that the class doesn't have a decent skill cap, because I'm sure it does. You could definitely tell the difference between a new Revenant or a new Herald versus one that has been experienced for a little while. You can definitely see the difference, but I still think that there is most certainly quite a few mechanics that might be a little too forgiving for what it has. And I agree with you. It does seem like a necessity for it, because if you don't take it, you know what I mean, you are going to be in some serious trouble. You know what I mean? So especially the Glint Heal being, I think, the key benefactor of that.
Yeah.
It's
Defiant Stance 2.0.
Yeah, Defiant Stance 10.0. It is so higher than Defiant Stance. We added an extra digit at the end of it. Hey, remember, the funniest part is it used to be a 4 seconds heal instead of a 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that was, it's still ridiculous now, but that was even more like, what?
Yeah.
So
the Glint Heal is just the biggest finger to Warriors. Like, it is. Like, okay, guys, you're gonna nerf us indirectly by making all these things amazing, but then you're just gonna straight up make one class's heal one of ours, but far better.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Same thing, same concept, but far superior.
Yep. Because not only do you have the inversion, but you also have passive regen going out to your allies when you don't use it. And
it's instant cast, so it can't be interrupted.
Yep.
And it's on the same cooldown. Actually, I think, was Defiant Stance on?
30 seconds, I believe. It used to be 35, and I think they nerfed it, or they buffed it down to 30.
I thought it was 35. Let me see. Is it down to 30? Yeah, because they used to. I remember it was higher. I'm like, for a second,
Yep.
I was going to say it's even on a higher cooldown. Not to mention, again, you have a second heal off
Yep.
of your next legendary. So,
Yep.
I think again I thought that was the whole concept of having two heals and two weapons and two legendaries is that you were supposed to have things that weren't as strong as those who had the same kind of heal. It was supposed to be less than average because you had two of them.
Yeah.
But it's not the case. You have not only superior versions, but you have a second one to back you up. But yes, you also have the double proc on shields through the skill as well as the 25%, which again is huge because it's a 3-second block, 25-second cooldown. It's yeah.
Yep.
Herald does seem like it's too much of a necessity. They put so much crap into it on top of the boon sharing and all the other stuff that they gave it.
I mean, it fills a good role. It's nice to have that theme, that role that you can fill with it, that flavor of build and spec, but it feels like they made it a little too good.
Yep.
And that's exactly what I was saying back in the beta weekend that they were available. It's like Revenant feels really good to the point of where it feels too good. Like it could probably be toned down a bit, but I don't think it was toned down since then, other than maybe the glint heal.
Well, there were a couple of heals because Surge of the Mist, the number 5 on staff, which hits like a truck and pushes you back. That got a little bit of a nerf, but I don't think it got much of a nerf because it still hits like a truck. You know what I mean? It still hits pretty hard for what it does.
Yeah.
And again, it's an evade. It almost reminds, again, people may not realize this, and I think even you would agree with me on this one. With again, I always compare it to Warriors. The Whirlwind.
Oh, yeah.
In melee range, I got to tell you, how do you avoid that in melee range? I don't think you can. It feels like an instant skill to some degree because it's. But this one's just like an above version of that. You have almost the damage. Actually, you do have the damage of a Whirlwind, right, with a knockback and an evasion attack. I mean, yeah, the other one's an evasion as well. I keep forgetting, obviously, but you have around the same damage. It's a knockback. So I just think it's just too good for what it is. So they actually nerfed that as well down to a 15%. It used to be a little stronger in its damage, but you just account all of these on top of the blocks from shield, another block from sword, which isn't even a necessity because you have the block on shield. So they have so much on every single kit that it's hard to really gauge what isn't strong when there are certain things that are just a little too good for what it is.
Yeah.
And it's just a combination.
Yeah, there was a match where I was actually it was a quote I think All Stars match because I queued up into Rom, Phantom, Toker, and I think 5 Gauge all in the same game. And I think Rom was on my team, but anyway, Fano was on his Revenant, and he and I would 1v1 on points. I was on my Warrior. And, I could not get through all of the stuff he had. He had so many evades and blocks and all of this stuff that Warrior, it showcased all of the problems Warrior has right now with trying to get things to hit because no matter how well I would time things, no matter how well I would time my Eviscerates and my Whirlwind attacks and my Rushes and 100 Blades and all of that stuff, Shield Bashes, I could not hit him enough to where it would get through all of his evades, his glint heals, his soothing bastion blocks, all of this stuff. It was just this ridiculous, back and forth of me trying to hit him and he evading, and then it was nuts. It was just a perfect example of why Warrior hurts and one of the things that's making Revenant strong right now is just this crazy dichotomy of things.
Well, they have again. I hate to say it, but it seems like they keep going back to more steroided up versions of what Warriors have. That's what it feels like to me. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like. You just have jacked up versions of these skills. You know what I mean? So I think, and again, my argument against that is you have two versions. You have two heroes on top of your weapon swap. Why do you have superior versions of this than other classes? You should have weaker versions because you have two of them.
Yeah.
You have two sets. You don't have one, you have two. So I never understood that. You know what I mean? That never made sense to me. Again, basic math. Okay, so say I play Warrior, you know what I mean? And you have, and again, you're playing a Revenant, okay? Yeah. Say one of my skills hits for 1,000. You now have two skills that hit for 1,200. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
at all.
it's
Why?
yeah, it's one of those situations where it's like I think they may have given Revan a little too much love.
Again, basic common sense would be, okay, if we're going to give you 2 of these, it should be weaker than the class that has only 1, right? So again, that's just me, common sense.
Yeah.
So that's why I look at Defiant Stance, I look at Glint Heal, I'm like, why? Why is this here? You know, this should not be a stronger version of it. You know what I mean? It should be a weaker version of it. Like, if anything, give it a cast time and you have to lower the duration because it's supposed to be a weaker version of it since you have 2 heals. So I went off a little bit on that one, and I'm sorry, but that's just the way I think it should be, you know?
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see what they're gonna do for the next major balance patch. Whether that comes in 5 days, 4 days, or whatever, Tuesday, or if it comes at the end of the season. I want to see what they're gonna do. I want to see what all of the balance stuff, and that's like before I was like with the whole warrior situation and whatnot. Like originally, probably a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I was like really harping on it. I was like really going ham and like, oh, Warrior's got all these problems, blah blah. Like I did whole spiels on it, and now I've given my feedback. I don't want to rant about it anymore. I've thrown what my thoughts are there out there, and now I'm just kind of waiting. I'll play my warrior for fun. I'll play my chronomancer for competitive stuff, and I'll just wait. Like I'm tired of just going on tirades about the problems with warriors. Like I'll discuss them. I'll discuss the problems with warriors, but I feel like a broken record at this point because
you're kicking a dead horse at this point. You've said your piece, and that's nice. You know what I mean? You've said your piece, but there definitely things that need to be looked at. Again, for me, it's like common sense things, like unrelenting assault. If you want to keep the skill the way it is, lower the strikes down to like 4 so that I don't have to blow 2 dodges to get away from it. You know what I mean? I shouldn't have to blow 2 dodges to avoid 1 skill. You know, that's just one instance of things that they could do.
Well,
like, common sense instances.
Well, like the thing is, they're in kind of a. It feels like they're in kind of a catch-22 with unrelenting assault because 1v1 it's ridiculous. 1v1 it's like 100 blades with evade frames and you can't do anything about it. But in a team fight, it's not like team fights. It's just the rev basically going evade frames. Like it doesn't. It's a great
defensive utility as well, and I think that again, I just think that it's too forgiving for what it can be, whether it be defensive utility or offensive pressure in a 1v1. That's all.
Yeah, the 1v1 pressure I agree is a little much on unrelenting assault, but like one of the things that I think is causing them trouble with balancing it is because in a team fight, it's a non-factor as far as damage goes. It's just might stacking and evade frames for the Revenant, which can arguably be done by a number of other classes in roughly the same span of time. Like I think that's where some of their balancing issues with unrelenting assault come from. Is it's like, okay, yeah, it's too strong in 1v1 situations, but within the same exact game, like not even 30 seconds later, it's pitiful damage in a team fight. Like I think that's where a lot of the problem with balancing that skill comes from. Is like, how do we do this between these two different situations?
Right, of course, yeah. But I think if you wanted to keep it to what it was as also a defensive utility, again, keep the damage like as the way it is. You know, up the damage, make it 4 strikes. You can avoid it and be done with it. You know, it's just, again, I agree with you. Yes, in a team setting, absolutely. You know what I mean? It's not nearly as strong. Offensively. Defensively, yes, you now have avoided a ton of damage for the duration because you can't be hit, essentially. But again, I still think that it should be looked at. Same with like Hammer. I know Hammer's not utilized, but like the number 2 on Coessence of Ruin hits like a truck on a 2-second cooldown. That's not a projectile. That's an AoE that you can't reflect. I mean, I just labeled, 5 positives to this? So there are just so many things that it has on top of it. It feels like it has an evasion on every single kit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doesn't it, to some degree?
Let's see. On weapons, you got Hammer 3, you got Staff 5, you got Sword 3.
Sword 4 too, I think. Or Sword 5.
No.
Oh, it's a block. It's a block.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Sword 5 is a block. Sword 4 is Disengage.
Yeah.
And let's see. I think the only main hand weapon that doesn't have an evade on it is Mace.
Dude, that is amazing to have an evade on almost every single kit that you have. I mean, don't you think that's just a little bit like, what? You know? I'm just saying. It just seems like, for instance, again, I hate to come back to this, but Guardians are now the only class that doesn't have an evade on any weapon whatsoever. Nothing.
But you got your Aegis. You're fine.
Aegis is, yeah. But again, I look at that and I'm like, wow, every single skill is just, wow, really, really nice. You know? It has the defensive utility to keep itself alive while also being offensive of the same nature. Again, unrelenting assault being a huge part of that. So, again, I agree with you. There's fine lines with everything, I think, to how they should balance things. But I think to some degree there should be some obviousness as to what needs to be looked at. And I think unrelenting assault is one of them. Coalescence of Ruin, Glint Heal. I know they nerfed Glint Heal, but again, it's still one of those heals that has very little counterplay in a team fight setting because there's so much cleave going off that yes, I may see you pop the Glint Heal, and I may stop attacking, but guess what? There's a shit load of cleave going on in the middle. You're still gonna get healed anyways. So I think that maybe that you need to look at more than just a couple of skills. You know what I mean? Do you kind of see where I'm getting at a little bit, just a tiny bit where there's a lot of forgivingness on so many skills that, again, it's I don't know. Yeah, that's just me, though.
I think one of the reasons why we didn't see a balanced patch, the 2 weeks before leagues, even though they said they wanted to do that, was just because now that they're seeing all of these elite specs in play in the general player base, and they're seeing all of these situations, and they're seeing all of these things that are happening, they're realizing that there are a lot of problems balance-wise that they can't, they didn't have the time to fix at the time of the 2 week mark, and that's why we haven't really seen much, is because they're still balancing, they're still figuring a whole bunch of stuff out. Just looking at Warriors in general as an example, because they're a great poster boy for this. There are so many underlying problems with traits and just the way our skills function that there's no way they're going to be able to do that by the time that deadline hit. That's
of course not. Yeah, there's just so much going on.
Yeah,
I get that.
I think that's why we can beat the balance horse, the dead balance horse, as much as we want, but until something actually changes, I don't we can acknowledge all the stuff that we want, but we're not really going to know all of the everything until they show us their changes. They do the balance patch, just because there are probably things that, in fact, I can almost guarantee that there are things that both you and I are not aware of that are also problems.
I'm sure, yeah, underlying issues that we would never even think about that could definitely be brought to light. I'm just speaking from a new perspective of a class that was just introduced, and in the beta it was very underwhelming, and then all of a sudden it's now having essentially 2 on each team. That's essentially like the argument to where DDLE's had, to where you essentially had 2 of them on each team, and it was working incredibly well. And I think even if you didn't have any sort of information to back up your argument, look at the numbers. Look at if your team is running 2 of something, something's wrong. You know what I mean? I'm just saying.
I don't think it's so much like if your team's running 2 of something's wrong. It's when many teams are running 2 of something.
Yes, exactly, and that's what we've been seeing. It's not just one team running 2 Revenants. You're seeing multiple teams run 2 Revenants. So again, there needs to be give. You know what I mean? I think every class should have some give. You know what I mean? On whatever skills they use. I don't think there should be an evade on every single skill, or else where's the counterplay to it? Again, where's the counterplay to unrelenting assault aside from being near a bunch of other people? There's no counterplay to it because guess what? You can't hit that opponent. You know what I mean? He's still not going to take any damage.
Well, there is.
Well, there are ways. Yes.
Stealth.
I think that not every single class. Again, that goes back to my point earlier where I was saying that not every single class has access to a ton of boon rip. You know what I mean? Not many classes have it, do they? So I think that argument is still kind of moot in that sense, to where if every single class had access to a ton of boon steal if they spec'd into it, then yeah, that would be a good argument as to the boon spam we have in the game. But there's not. You know what I mean?
Just a tangential thing. Whenever you bring up boon stealing or boon ripping or whatever, I get very sad because Warriors don't have that.
I used to have one. Do you remember that? A long time ago, we had anytime we burned an opponent, every 10 seconds we removed a boon. That's gone.
I don't remember that trait.
Well, because it's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. But we had something.
Yeah. Warriors, all we have ever gotten for anything involving boons, anything involving anti-boon stuff, because we used to have, and this has since been nerfed, but we used to have our Warhorn trait that would convert conditions to boons.
That's right.
Now it just clears conditions. But anyway, the only thing we have ever had for being like fighting boons has been one boon hate trait in discipline.
The empowerment. The what's it called?
It's destruction of the empowered. It gives us like 3% more damage per boon on the target. The thing is though, like that competes with Brawler's Recovery, which we need. So it's like, okay, all right. Yeah, I'll just sit here and be sad whenever someone talks about boon ripping and stuff. But,
right. It's just, again, there needs to be give. Every class should have give. I don't think every class should have everything because that's what leads to bruisers. And when you have the vast majority of your comp involving bruisers, I think it's a little bit of a problem. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
And that, again, I just wanted to go over. Again, I'm not saying I'm right. You know, by no means am I saying that. I don't think either of us are always right in what we discuss, but we can definitely give our input on what we see, and that's just what I see. Again, I usually come from a Guardian standpoint, and by no means am I saying that my views from a Guardian standpoint are true, but I can still give them, just like you can give your opinions from a Warrior standpoint, you know what I mean? So we see things from a more undertuned aspect, more so the Warrior than the Dragon Hunter, because you're not seeing any Warriors, and you're seeing a lot less Dragon Hunters. So you're seeing things that are being pushed out if already been pushed out, you know, the Warrior. So that's why I think that's a good way to. I think that's why it's a good way or a good point to come from, because if you're coming from a point or from a class that's already strong enough to compete, you know, I don't think it's as valuable as something that isn't even close to that or isn't even near that.
Oh,
you know?
my class can compete. Everything's fine.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is that you come from a Warrior standpoint, you can understand on how ridiculous certain things can be, versus say, you know, again, a Reaper, which can compete very well right now. I don't think your argument isn't nearly as strong.
Like, you know? I try and be as objective as I can, regardless. Like, part of the reason why I like multi-classing, not just because it's fun, but also because then I can get a better understanding of how balance is from all perspectives. I used to be, like 100% Warrior, and I would only look at things from a Warrior perspective, and I would only look at how things felt fighting them. But I like the fact that I've been able to get a better understanding of how each class feels and what their weaknesses and their cooldowns and everything are by playing other ones. I still don't feel like I'm an expert on all classes, but getting those alternate perspectives allows me to at least attempt to be more objective on things. Even if my main is not in a good position, I don't want to feel like everything is OP and everything is blah blah. Like, I want to still get as objective of a perspective as I can, and that's like what I was talking about with Chronomancer. Chronomancer feels strong, but only in the right hands. And if you fuck up on a Chronomancer, you're dead. Like, it's easy to shut down someone who's not playing Chronomancer very well, even though on the flip side, someone who plays Chronomancer very well can just decimate tons of people. Like, that's just something I like to keep in mind whenever I'm talking about balance. Is I
yeah, of course, you have to, because again, at the end of the day, people are going to know you as a Warrior. They're going to know me as a Guardian. And guess what? The initial reaction is, well, they're only seeing it from this point of view or that point of view. And I'll be honest with you, you're right. I guarantee you, in the back of both of our minds, we are still talking about this mostly from a Warrior and or Guardian standpoint, because it's what we know. But again, trying to be objective is also paramount, you know what I mean? Because it opens your eyes as to what may potentially be even more wrong than what it is. And that's why, again, and I still go back to my point when we were talking about, like, when your class isn't in the meta, your opinion, I didn't mean to say it like this. I said that what I said was your opinion should matter more. I guess I really don't mean that. What I mean to say is that I think it should be taken into consideration just as much, because you're on the tail end of it. You're on the end of it to where you cannot compete. You know, you can't, no matter what you do. And I think, you know, it's something that should be looked at from a class who can't compete. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just funny because there are probably a number of people out there, not necessarily anyone who's listening to this right now, but I can think of a number of situations where someone's like, "Oh, but you were OP in the past. You're just missing the OP days. You don't know what you're doing."
That's not a good argument. I don't think that's a really good argument at all, because no class should be shut out.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's people being dumb in a lot of cases. Like, most of the time, people are pretty rational, and they're like, "Yeah, right now, X class is in a bad position, and people who are talking about those problems are right in their thoughts. They are experienced with this class, and they know what they're talking about. But you do have those people who just think people are whining and everything's fine, and the people who are underpowered, oh, they just need to learn to play. Like, there are those people. It's part of why I don't go to the forums very often.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do. There are only, again, the whole learn to play issue, argument doesn't exist anymore, because there are literally things that me as a player, like as a Dragon Hunter, I can't. There's literally nothing I can do against a Tempest. Nothing. No matter how well I play, there's nothing I can do. I am literally shut out. You know what I mean? You as a warrior, most things you can. There's nothing you can do really. You know what I mean? It's not a learn to play issue. It is just, well, this is a pretty nasty counter to me. So what do I do?
Yeah.
Do I disengage? Do I continue fighting? A useless battle. So I don't like the whole learn to play thing anymore, because I think that argument has pretty much just been kicked in the teeth way too much.
Yeah, although there are still situations where it is definitely learn to play. Like, it's always going to happen. You will have people who are playing something that can do just fine, but if they don't play it properly, then that's their problem.
Of course, yeah, no, you're right. There are definitely going to be issues there, but I think when you look at specific ones to where you can back it up with hard data, or at least some data, you're like, well, there's literally nothing I can do on this one. So I get it. I understand that this is a counter to me. Do I think it should be? No, because, like, again, this is just to go off on a little bit. I don't think there should be any hard counters in this game. I think hard counters are bad for any game. Soft counters I'm okay with, but like here's a good one, like Diamond Skin. Everyone knows that. That's a hard counter to any sort of Diamond Skill. That is a hard counter to any sort of class that's running pure Condi damage and no power. Literally the hardest counter I think I've ever seen. Bad for the game, in my opinion. I don't think that's a terrible trait, dude. Brutal. But again, it's an instance to where I'm pretty even sure that you can see where I'm coming from, to where it doesn't belong.
Yeah, I understand where you and everyone who doesn't like Diamond Skin comes from. Like, it makes sense that people would not be happy. It makes sense that it's not necessarily the most healthy thing to have something that just straight up counters everything of a certain type of damage. Like, just all these builds that can't do enough power damage. But at the same time, like, Diamond Skill doesn't... Diamond Skill. I did it. Oops,
dude.
Diamond Skill.
Listen,
no.
I get it. There's a 90% threshold. I understand that. But you got to understand is these elementals are so insanely tanky that, again, I know this game's not balanced in a 1v1. That's a terrible argument to have. I get that. But as, say, someone running, again, Rabid, or even to some degree carrying, because you don't have enough outward pressure, you're not going to drop that Ellie. You know what I mean? And they're just going to regenerate all the way back up. So, I still think I don't think it's a good argument to have something that's such a hard counter. That's all.
I guess I don't really have an opinion on Diamond Skin, just because it is what it is. That's
not a good argument. I don't think that's a good attitude to have. I don't think we should just go with it is what it is. I think,
I've got my own problems to deal with right now.
I know, but what I'm saying, but I don't think that's a good way to handle it. At the end of the day, I don't think we should just go, it is what it is. I think we should handle it. Like make it something to where above this threshold you take like 30% less condition damage or duration. Not making it a complete hard counter, making it more of a soft counter. So again, I don't like that either, to where we should just sometimes leave things the way they are, and then maybe, just maybe, we'll figure it out.
Let me put it this way. The amount of thought that I would have to put into the whole Diamond Skin thing is as much thought as I would have to put into the entirety of the warrior thing. I don't want to think about it right now.
No, it's fine, and I get that. I understand that. It probably takes a lot more thought than any sort of suggestions that I'm putting out there. But again, leaving some things the way they are, I just don't think it's a good idea. What I mean? I don't think it's a great idea to have.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Any sort of hard counter needs to go. Soft counters are fine. That's just it. And that's just how I feel about it. That's it.
Yeah. Again, at this point, I'm kind of just waiting to see what happens, and then
going from there. We're supposed to be getting a patch on Tuesday, are we not?
Leagues are coming. Leagues will be here on Tuesday. I'm not sure if we're going to be getting a balance patch. They have not confirmed or denied any balance patch, so I don't know. I hope, but I don't know. If there isn't one, then pretty much any hope I have for Warriors getting any sort of love for this season will be gone and down the drain. But
and that's really unfortunate too, because that should not be the case. It's quite obvious when things are a little out of hand or not, doing very well. So I hope that's not the case, and I do hope that it does get looked at.
Yeah.
But with a delicate hand.
Yeah, with the delicate hand.
Careful.
I mean, at this point, as far as competitive stuff goes, I'm playing Chronomancer, so even if Warrior doesn't get love, it's like it's not that I don't have a backup plan. I'll still be playing my Chronomancer for my team. But if I would like to be able to solo queue with my main class and not feel like I'm a hindrance to my team.
Right. I'm a little jealous on that because again, you have given on your Warrior really quick, to play something that's more viable, and I applaud you for it. But I haven't been able to do that just yet on my Dragon Hunter. Now granted, it's not nearly as a bad of a spot, but I can tell you that running a Dragon Hunter, as soon as I get focused, I'm pretty much dead.
Yeah.
But running a Dragon Hunter, I still feel like I don't feel as much of a liability as a Warrior, but I still feel like I'm one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that.
I haven't gotten past that point to where I want to swap to something that is more viable, more forgiving, and I don't know what it is, dude. I haven't gotten to that point. A couple of my friends have. One of them went to Ellie, one of them went to Revenant or Druid. I mean, I haven't gotten to that, So, and I don't want to. I'm just like I don't want to swap. But you have actually done it. You've had that swap. I guarantee you in the back of your mind, like, shit, I wish my Warrior was viable. That way I could play that too. So
yeah,
I mean, I get it.
The main reason why I've done that is partially because I have practiced and kind of trained myself to be open to multi-classing over probably the past year, but also because I want to win. I want to get the Legendary Division when leagues come out, and in order to do that, I need to be open to doing what's best for the team. And in this case, what's best for the team is me switching to something that I'm somewhat comfortable on, or I can dedicate to as far as like my playstyle goes. In this case, it's like +1 spike doing the deeps, but something that benefits the team as well. And having like Portal is a really good thing to have, and being able to really blow people up, and having things like precog, just stuff like that helps the team out the most. And that's why I was switching classes a lot in the past few weeks, because like with Dragon Hunter, it fills the role that the team wanted me on, does the damage and whatnot, but the problem we were running into was I couldn't get to fights fast enough because of lack of mobility. And because of the whole traps thing, people could counter me too easily, and I'm not good enough at Guardian to know how to deal with that. Or when I was messing with Tempest Ellie, like that was a situation where I was getting a hang of it. I was getting kind of I was getting into the swing of how to play, support Tempest, but the team's comp didn't need that. We kept running into a situation where we didn't have enough mobility and we didn't have enough damage in team fights. So after figuring stuff out and discussing with my team, we had me go Chronomancer, and all of our games since then have been very good. Like, we've had very good matches with me on Chronomancer. We've also had a couple other members shuffle around a little bit. Like, we had one of our members who was originally doing Revenant, and we were originally running 2 Revenants. We now instead have him on Reaper, and we have 1 Revenant, 1 Reaper. Mm-hmm. And it's just having that kind of open mind to what the team needs as opposed to what I individually main or necessarily want to play is, I think being able to kind of let go a little bit helps in situations where your main is in a bad position, because at least then you have other things you can play, other things you have fun on. Because I love Chronomancer. I've loved Shatter Mesmer for years. I love Chronomancer now. Like, it's a ton of fun. It's nice to have something that I can feel like an asset to my team on, even when my main, my Warrior, is not viable for competitive play.
Right.
And
that's what makes you a good teammate, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me a bad teammate, because I have yet to come to that conclusion to where I may need to swap. I understand that I probably have to, and I should, But at the same token, it's like I really don't want to. You know what I mean? It's just this is my baby. You know what I mean? It really is.
Trust
and
me, it's hard to let go. Like when
it really is,
when
dude.
it's terrible. Yeah, when I first started breaking that perfect, orange or brown or whatever pie in the PvP thing, like it hurt. It was really hard to let go because I think I had like 1,200 games or something like that on Warrior at that point, and I was like, oh, I don't want to let go, but I gotta.
You have to, yeah. And I really hope I come to that realization sooner than later because I'd like to compete as well. And I think once you come to that realization and you accept it and you work around it to whatever the team needs, that just makes you a better player overall because now not only are you multi-classing and getting better at a second class, because eventually your main class is going to be brought back up. It happens. It goes in cycles. But you'll now have a better, more knowledge and more understanding of the class you were playing as. So that's, again, it's really, really good, without a doubt. I just think, again, just me, I don't like it when any one class or whatever the case is shut out so badly. Ergo Warriors.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think I've ever seen that to where one class was almost never ever represented in a tournament, like never. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was again very very surprised to see that.
I think Ranger has been there. I feel like Ranger's been in that situation where they were not represented at all in a tourney.
Yeah, and it's funny is I know they have actually. Remember in the WTS, your Ant team was running Power Ranger.
Yeah, I mean I'm talking about before that.
Oh, well, before I have no idea. But I would say also that Rangers are going to hate me for this, but every single iteration of Ranger has been a joke in my opinion. Well, you have Beastmaster, took no skill. You had, again, Spirit Ranger, took no skill. I mean, you also had Trap Ranger, which, again, it feels like Trapper Guardian to some extent, except you're far tankier than I am, took no skill. And now you have, again, Druids are going to hate me for that, but it just feels like, holy crap, like their tankiness is so nice.
You're going to get so much Ranger hate.
Yeah, but you know what? At the same token, I have a friend who plays Rangers named Jacob Rowe. I think maybe many people may know him, but at the same token, what I'm saying isn't a lie. If you look at every single if you look at every single iteration of Warrior or Ranger that was viable, it was Traps, Beastmaster, and Spirit Ranger, with the last two being very skillless. Especially Spirit Ranger. What was that? Remember that? Here Comes the Petting Zoo. Do you remember that? Oh my gosh!
I don't know. I don't know if anything will top Petting Zoo as much as Turret Engies will. Turret Engies and Minion Mancers.
I don't think Minion Mancers were ever viable though. Really?
Kind, like here and there. It depends on comp, but you typically only see them as solo queue. Right.
No, I don't hate Rangers. I talk to them all the time on how I really really enjoy what Rangers are now becoming viable. It's just interesting to see what they've become. You know what I mean? It's just they're just another bruiser or bunker that we did not need, right? We need less bruisers and stuff like that. We need more defined roles like support bunker, like what Bunker Guardian used to be, or more DPS oriented to where you can be bursted down if you screw up. Ergo, like Chronomancers, which can be smacked around if you are not careful. Yeah. So stuff like that, which I thought we needed more of. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now we're getting very close to when we should end the cast here, but. I just realized something, and I feel silly for just realizing now. You know how we were talking about like which ones have we missed and whatnot, and they were like, oh, Chronomancer, we've had the footage and all that this entire time. Yeah. We haven't talked about Berserker. Like, I don't think we talked about we talked about the problem.
That's how sad how things have gotten.
Yeah.
I'm not even joking. I'm not trying to be rude to your class. It's just that's how sad.
Oh no, like I believe it. Like I also forgot. Like I completely forgot we hadn't talked about Berserker.
We didn't talk about Berserker.
No.
And the reason why we haven't talked about it is because, again, not to be rude to those who play Warrior Berserker, but I don't know what to talk about because I never see them.
Well, yeah.
I never see Warriors. I mean, I've been seeing a lot less Guardians now. But I never see Warriors, ever. There's no Warriors.
There's a good reason for that. It's just because we get shut down by everything. Like,
that's it.
We either get shut down...
And if I see a Warrior, it's Core Warrior. It's not even Berserker.
Yeah, it's... The reason why is with all of the evades, the blacks, the teleports, the kiting, the blinds, we both Core Warrior and Berserker, we can't deal with the amount of all of those things that all of the other classes have at the moment. And really, the only thing that we can reliably, or the only thing I've reliably been able to kill have been Daredevils and other warriors. And everything else, I can kill other classes, don't get me wrong, but it takes an immense amount of effort to be able to do it. It takes, like, it's not easy to...
You know what warriors need?
What?
Stealth. Let's give warriors stealth.
Of course, yes. Let's give warriors stealth, and all problems will be solved. That's the amount. You know how much? You have no idea how much salt would come out of the forums if they gave warriors stealth. Oh my god, it would be ridiculous. But
I would laugh so hard. I don't think it would fix, but I would just laugh and be like, "Welp, there you go."
I can guarantee you it would not fix a damn thing, but it would be hilarious to see.
It would be hilarious for the time being. I guarantee it, but stealth. But it just—I don't think it would. I agree. It wouldn't fix it. It just. Oh.
But no, like there isn't really a whole lot to say about Warrior right now. Because of we're just not really represented right now. You have a few diehards like myself who will play it periodically, but it's not being represented competitively. It has a bunch of problems with our trait lines and our synergies, and we have no role in a competitive setting that can't be done better by someone else. We have a few gimmick builds out there, but they'll work in low and mid tier like MMR games and whatnot. Like there's this really derpy Gunflame Berserker build that I've seen people talk about. I've never seen one. I have never actually. Well, no, I take it back. I saw it once. And you know what we did when we saw it? We focused it and it died in 5 seconds. We have some gimmick builds. We have working Berserker builds, kind of. I came up with a Selly Berserker build that works, but it's not amazing. Really, the only thing that, if you want to have any, for sure, the only two builds that really, truly, 100% work for Warrior, and even then that's relative based on, the environment we're fighting in, are like Axe Shield Greatsword and Shout Bow. And problem with Axe Shield Greatsword is you're dealing with all the problems with trying to hit things and all that stuff. And with Shout Bow, you're dealing with you're outclassed by everyone roll. It's just you don't really we don't really have anything to deal with the environment we're currently playing in, and it's just like I've seen people all over the place say, "Oh, but this build works perfectly fine for me. Oh, this build works perfectly fine for me." Like, yeah, solo queue, a lot of stuff works. You can kill. I've killed people with really derpy builds on Warrior in solo queue. Saying something,
it works because it's solo queue. That's what it is.
It works because it's not a competitive setting. It works because you are dealing with a bunch of random people who aren't coordinated, and you can take advantage of that lack of coordination. And yes, you can make certain builds work. That's like that Selly Warrior build I came up with. It works in solo queue, but I really never would expect that thing to work in a competitive setting, just because it doesn't do enough to influence fights that you would need. It doesn't have enough influence that you would need to have in a competitive setting. And things like that YOLO Gunflame build, it works in solo queue because either you're fighting bad opponents, you're fighting opponents who don't expect it, or you're fighting opponents who don't have a coordinated team behind them who can then spike you down as soon as they see you. Because that's one of the biggest shutdowns for that, is just, hey, it's a warrior running Gunflame, kill them. They're not going to be able to do shit. Because like one of the reasons why I don't like rifle in PvP is because it's not a very good kit for defensive reasons. You basically sit there at range and pew pew, and if someone comes to attack you, if you get focused, if you're on rifle, you got nothing. You got a knockback and that's it. You have zero things to deal with that kind of pressure. And if you swap to your other weapon set, there goes the entire point behind your build, which is gunflaming people to death. If you're on your other weapon set, you don't got gunflame. You got shield, I hope. You got shield and sword.
You shield.
Yeah,
you're gonna need it.
Yeah, if you got shield, if you're running gunflame with sword and shield on your offset, congrats. You have a block that will save you for all 3 seconds, assuming you're not dealing with unblockable stuff, which you probably will be.
There seems to be a lot more abundance of unblockable stuff now.
There is. Oh, trust me, there is.
It feels like there's a lot more stuff that's unblockable. You already had quite a few before, but now it's like, okay, now there's even more. And it's it's not good. The whole point, again, I understand. I think the whole reason behind the whole unblockable skills was to deal with durational blocks, But when you have like active blocking, that's what I thought it was, you know?
Yeah.
Then you're really screwing over people because you have so much of it. So,
yeah, but going back to what I was saying, if you're also running sword with that, you've got Savage Leap to get out, and then you're not even contributing anymore at that point. Like, if you're leaving a fight, you're not contributing. You can go to another point where you'll probably get 1v1 no problem by someone who knows what they're doing. But it's, like, I see all of this stuff all over the place of Warrior players who are like, oh, all these top tier players, they're just shitting on Warrior. Like, Warrior's fine, it works for me. Like, I see all of this stuff. I see all sorts of reasoning for it. And, like, yes, if a build works for you, go ahead and play it. Like, you're there to have fun. Play it. But if you are expecting that to work in a competitive setting, and this is where, like, all of my beefs with Warrior balance come from, I'm looking at things from a competitive standpoint. I may not be a top tier player. I like to think I'm at least high tier, but I don't consider myself top tier or anything. But I know
you're mega tier.
I'm mega tier. Like, I know my way around Warrior. I try and look at balance from a competitive setting. Things will work in solo queue. Things work in solo queue. I play my Warrior in solo queue. I still have fun with my Warrior in solo queue, but I don't take solo queue balance seriously because it's not. You don't have all of the factors that you need to consider when talking about balance present in solo queue. You don't have team coordination. You don't have a lot of build. You don't have the builds that are designed to maximize their role that they're in. Like, you can run builds on Warriors, no problem, but just keep in mind that if it's working, it's probably because it's in solo queue and you're not fighting a coordinated team that can spike you down on a whim. Like, that's like when I'm practicing with my team and we're queuing on ranked or whatever, just because ranked isn't available yet.
Right.
Whenever we see a Warrior, like, all of us agree, spike the Warrior, and it
yeah,
works.
me too.
Every
single time, dude. I'm going right after that Warrior because I know as soon as that stance is done, I'm like, you're dead. You're mine.
Yep, and no matter what build that Warrior runs, they are now a non-factor. It does not matter what build they were running because they are now dead. And no Warrior build is going to do you any good when you're dead.
Right. There's actually one aspect I wanted to discuss that was a little bit outside of what we were talking about for a little bit. Right. As soon as you're done with Warrior, unless there's something else that you wanted to go over on Warrior, I'm curious.
No, since we're a little short on time, I am kind of cutting it short there. But
no, I know what you mean. I think at least I hope the vast majority of us understand or should understand, certain things. So I get it. I understand. And it's yeah. There's actually something I wanted to discuss, and just a little briefly before we do stop, is some more skills, individual skills that may be considered to be a little too good, and I wanted to know MOA. Now, let me ask you about this, because with the way the game is right now, there's still no real counter to stealth, right? There really isn't. Let's be honest.
Revealed spam.
Yeah, because everybody has that. Again, that goes back to the argument of every class having boon rip, which not every class does. So again, another example to where I'm like, that argument doesn't hold. So, MOA. Yeah, so I wanted to know what you thought about it, because I think that having any sort of like, again, stealth burst or stealth MOA to me, I think is a little bit of an issue, because it goes back to the whole, it's a little bit of a hard counter to where you can't really avoid it unless you get a random dodge, block, blind, whatever the case is off. And I don't think randomness should be taken into consideration. So I was curious what you thought about it, and I think I don't mind keeping MOA the way it is. I just think that the duration might be a little too long for essentially saying that you're dead, because you are dead pretty much unless you're running Sentinel Amulet. Ranger, but I'm just saying. What do you think?
My opinion on MOA is it's annoying as shit. Don't get me wrong; it is incredibly annoying to get hit by a MOA. But I honestly don't feel like MOA is making or breaking any. Like, it's great for coordinated team spikes. It's great for coordinated stuff. But I don't really feel like MOA is that big of a deal. It's annoying. It's incredibly annoying. But I don't feel like MOA has really ever caused too many issues. It doesn't feel like that big of a problem to me. Half the time I don't even see Mesmers running MOA. I see Mesmers, well, not Chronomancers, running Gravity Well or Time Warp, or I don't even really see Mass Invis anymore. But I see MOA sometimes. But more often than not, I really only see engineers running MOA with their Elixir X toss, and then it's just like 3 seconds. It's not that long. So it's
Well, no, it's not 3 seconds. It's 10.
no, that's the MOA.
That's what I said.
That's the Mesmer MOA. Engineer
Yeah,
MOA.
that's what I'm talking about. Right.
Engineer MOA is like 2-3 seconds. It's
right.
Not very long at all. But no, I like the whole Elite. I don't really notice MOA as being that big of a deal. Like, yeah, I don't know. I guess
based on a skill, based on just like a regular skill itself, especially coming from stealth where you cannot see it. I wanted to know your opinion on it because again, I don't mind having the concept of what MOA is there. I just think that the duration is probably a little too long. I think 10 seconds is way more than enough time that a team needs to literally destroy someone's face in, because what are you going to do when you're in MOA? You're dead. So I just want to know your opinion on it. I think the duration might be a little too long, and if you were to reduce it, you would lower the cooldown to compensate. It was just something that I was just discussing. That's all.
Yeah,
I guess you're useless for 10 seconds. There's literally nothing you can do. So that's why I think 10 is quite a bit long. That's all.
Yeah, I don't know. It's another one of those things where I don't really have an opinion on it because it's.
That's fair. I just wanted to know what you thought at the time. That's all. I'm not saying that I'm right or wrong. It's just something that I was talking about, or the concept of stealth burst in general. You know what I mean? Where again, I don't really like a good game that I would compare. Like I think sort of appropriate stealth burst would be something like Wild Star, to where if your opponent gets close to you, you can see them. Yeah. As long as they were in front of you, you would see them. So, but that's not the case in this game, obviously.
Well, I mean, to counter that example, Mesmer can MOA from I think like 900 range. It's either 900 or 600. So like.
It's actually 1,200.
1,200. It's even still furthering my point. Like in other games with stealth, you can't see stealth people from that range. They have to be like literally in your face. So I mean, yeah, you could use the whole being able to see stealth thing for the whole MOA thing, but it doesn't really work with the MOA situation because.
Oh no, it was just something that I was thinking about as we close down the podcast, is because I don't like hard counters at all. And I sort of almost feel like that's a little bit of a card counter, because again, when you're rendering a player quite literally completely useless for 10 seconds, 10 seconds in PvP is an eternity. Hell, even 3 seconds is an eternity, dude. So
in combat, it definitely feels like it.
Right. So I just wanted to know your opinion, and I mean it's fine. Again, I'm not saying I'm right. Just something I wanted to briefly go over.
Yeah. All right, there's one last thing that I think is pertinent to all the balance thing, all the balance stuff that we've been talking about. I think it's a nice way to finish off the cast. Is I've seen the notion thrown around in many cases. Hell, it's even in my chat right now as we're doing this podcast.
What's up?
It's that your class is now underpowered when it's been perfectly fine in the past, and other classes have been underpowered before and now they're fine. Everyone should have their time to be underpowered and useless and whatnot. That's not a good way.
What? That's a terrible argument.
That's a very selfish way of looking at things. That's basically saying, I was underpowered in the past, now it's your turn. Have fun in hell. Like it's a very selfish and just rude way of going about looking at balance. It completely disregards the way that other players, the viability of other players in a competitive setting. It's just
a terrible
rude.
Argument.
It's a very rude way to look at balance. It's completely disregarding your fellow players, your fellow competitors. It's just, I don't like that outlook. Yes, balance sucks. Yes, everyone's going to be in a bad situation or has been in a bad situation. But the idea, the whole goal of balance is to reach a point where that's not the case, where no one is shut out from the meta, where people are, where everyone has something they can bring to the table and everyone is viable in some manner. I really don't like that train of thought.
You're right. It's a terrible argument.
Yeah, it's a super selfish way of looking at it. It's I don't like it.
I think just because you got your time, not saying you in general, that you got your time and that some other class who's been overpowered for a while, that they deserve to stay that way? No.
Yeah,
absolutely. You want every class to be viable. You want to see every single class make its appearance in tournament settings and have a chance at winning. Not a small chance, but a good chance. You don't want, just because some class has been raffle stomping you or just been destroying your face for so long doesn't necessarily mean they should not be viable. That's a terrible argument. No way. Whoever says that, I'm sorry, you can eat it. You're a terrible person. No,
yeah, but like a lot of times, what I'll see people who are of that mindset and who are saying, "Oh, just you got to deal with it. It's your turn. Suck it up. Whatever." It's not. Oh, I completely lost the train of thought. Whatchamacallit? Oh, I had a pertinent point.
That's okay. Well, let's see. Let's see if we can drive your memory. You were saying, again, selfish. You were saying, I'm trying to jog your memory, dude.
I'm trying to jog my memory too.
It's hard. It'll come up.
It'll come back. It'll come back. I know it'll come back. Whatchamacallit?
Well, you were talking about how, again, we've been going over this just for a minute or two, is that the idea of being in such a, say, S tier state. You know, you have A, you have S, A, B, B, C, D, whatever the case is for your tiers. Just because you were in an S tier state, you know what I mean, and now you're down to like a D, doesn't necessarily mean you should stay there just because you've been up there for so long.
I remember it, and actually, I don't think you said health check, but anyway, I applaud you for trying.
I'm sorry.
It was that something I see a lot of people who have this statement, this line of thinking say, and like suck it up, blah blah blah, is they'll criticize people who are stating things, stating what is wrong. They'll say, oh, such class is not a good spot right now because of X, Y, and Z, giving logical, well thought out, well informed thoughts on the matter, and they'll just say, oh, they're just crying, oh, they're just QQing, oh, X class should be shitty, blah blah blah. Like, no. It's a good idea to communicate the issues that are happening with a certain class, because then that will help fix that class or help balance things to a better state overall, and then everyone can have more fun because everyone has a viable role to play and a viable setup that they can use in a competitive setting. The whole idea behind PvP and competition and all that is because it's fun. Everyone should be able to have fun in a competitive setting because they feel they have a chance at winning. Like, that's what competition is about. Like, it's all in the name of good fun, competitive fun, and may the best man win. May the best team win. Not, oh, I am so much more powerful than these plebeians who are running a shit class that was OP before, so now it's their time to be in the shit fest. Like, it's not... I don't like the entire mentality that I've seen come out of people who suggest that a class should, like, every class should have a time to be bad because other classes have been bad in the past. No, everything should be balanced so then everyone can have fun because it's a competitive situation, just like any other competitive setting, like with sports or whatever. Like, it's a very... Let
me bounce off that for a second, because I wanted to combo on top of that. Those are the same types of people who, anytime you bash their class, they will always say, no, everything's fine, without actually giving any sort of constructive criticism, without giving any sort of hard data, any sort of research done. They'll just say, no, everything's fine, LOL, learn to play. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now, they may just say everything's fine without actually giving any data, and I hate that. If you want to have a decent argument about balance, you need to bring numbers. You need to bring actual data into the table. You need to bring actual facts. Don't just say, no, everything's fine, because it's not. You don't do that. That's not how this works.
Well, like another thing is people will oftentimes misconstrue criticism, constructive criticism, as assuming someone's not having fun anymore. Like, I have gone at length about how bad the situation is for Warriors right now, what our problems are. I've gone at length about all that stuff. But it's not that I haven't stopped having fun with my Warrior. I still play my Warrior in solo queue. I still have a ton of fun with it. I'm still enjoying my Warrior despite the bad balance situation we're in. And someone telling me to suck it up is basically throwing those words at nothing, because in a sense, yeah, I kind of already have. I'm still having fun, I'm still playing it, but I acknowledge the problems there are in the hopes that it gets more attention to it and it eventually gets fixed. I'm not just, like, quitting my Warrior because we're in a bad situation. I've seen other Warriors do that. I've seen other Warriors just hit the reroll button instantaneously, but...
With that on some Dragon Hunters, dude, to go into either Tempest, Revenants, whatever the case, because it works. But again, that goes back to the same thing we were talking about earlier with... Like you as a person, you're not quitting. You're just adjusting to what your team needs. It's not a form of quitting. Yeah. It's just like, hey, I got to do this for the time being because my team needs this. And unfortunately, my main class won't do this, so I need to switch.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
What I
mean? Like me playing Chronomancer in a competitive setting does not mean I've re-rolled. It just means I'm playing what my team needs in a competitive setting. I play Warrior in solo queue. I play Warrior when I'm doing fun stuff. Like I haven't abandoned the class. I'm still having a lot of fun with it. It's just I acknowledge the problems it has, and I'm playing a different class in the meantime that helps my team more so than other things. But no class ever deserves to be undertuned or in a bad spot. It's just that's how things end up happening, but no one deserves it. It's a super selfish and just downright mean outlook to have. Just because you've been in a bad situation before does not mean others deserve to be there as well. This would go into, if we weren't so close to finishing the podcast, this would be a whole like humanity, psychology thing we'd be going into, because this is not unique to Guild Wars 2, but
right.
I want to close the podcast saying, if you think others deserve to be in a shitfest just because you've been there and you dealt with it and they have to too, no. Just learn to have some respect for your fellow man and not be selfish.
Yeah, that's it. Again, and let me ask you one question, you and whoever's listening here. Wouldn't you rather have a fight to where you know that what you do cause, whatever input that you have, that at the end of that fight, if you win, it was you, not because your class is ridiculously overpowered or the person you're fighting is so unviable that you just thought it was a joke? Isn't it more fun to fight something or be against something that actually puts up a fight and that you could potentially lose? Isn't that more fun than just raffle stomping somebody?
I personally would say yes. However, I know there are a number of people who are selfish and just want to win and would rather have easy raffle stomps for days.
Yeah. So I just wanted to close on that because that's how I feel. I want to say, hey, guess what? I beat you. You gave me you were a decent threat, but at the end of the day, I took you down. Not because my class was carrying me, but because of what I did on my own to tear you apart. So that is what I prefer. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think that's going to wrap up the cast. We've gone on for a little over 2 hours.
Did we really?
Yeah, we did. Damn!
It
seems like every time we come back, we have
good discussions.
We have good discussions and we go on for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
But anyway, you want to do another one? You want to start up the series again?
Absolutely, yeah. Let me know when you want to do the next one. I'll tell you when I'm off, and we'll do it. Absolutely, without a doubt.
All right, sounds good. So with that has been the Shin-Arken podcast, episode 19. We're still counting the series despite our couple hiatuses in there. But thanks everyone for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Yep, see you guys later.